And I'm going to ask this question in two parts. The first part is, we've already mentioned ChatGPT several times in this panel. So AI is developing at a very rapid pace, and if you project forward, it's going to develop a lot more. So how are you updating your investment thesis to take into account the current and the future capabilities of AI?
At the heart of your question, I think there is a base where you're saying, will AI ultimately replace, or is it a additive assistant in some shape or form? We are very much similar to what Jared said of the opinion that AI is going to hugely help what we're doing. We're investing behind it in a very heavy way. I think if I'm trying to think about a comparative, I would say maybe similar to the Industrial Revolution when people were worried about machines. Obviously, it created some pain, specifically for corporations and different types of methods that didn't adapt. But I don't think there's any farmer today that wants to use a shovel rather than a tractor. So I think VCs are very similar in that sense. And at Hetz, we are probably the techiest Israeli VC out there with our entire investment team, ex-engineers. We use a ton of software to help us what we do. I'm happy to just give one quick example, just to bring it home. But we made this public. So a couple of weeks ago, we released a product as a VC. We released an open source piece of software to the open source community so that anybody who wants to track a piece of open source and know how many of the stars are real versus fake, contributors, forks, etc. This may be sort of Chinese to everybody here who can't speak Chinese, but to the open source community, this is huge for them. And this is one of maybe a couple of dozen pieces of software that we're using internally. So the move of ChatGPT AI for us is a massive positive.
Well, I think you answered the aspect of how it affects your job. I don't agree with what you said, but that's fine. But how does it affect your companies? In other words, are there companies which you would invest in who are going to become obsolete because of AI, or who are would not be feasible without AI, but are actually feasible? So does your investment thesis change in terms of how AI impacts the portfolio companies?
So let me give an example, because we've been trying to invest in generative AI since 2018. Our first investment was early 2019. And I think your previous question was, do VCs just follow the trends too much? We've been waiting for generative AI startups for the last few years. And now the opposite. ChatGPT comes out, so here comes all the startups. So I would say there's the same question to all the founders out there as well. But just to give an example, so I think there's going to be a whole wave of disruption and successful startups in the generative AI space. But it's important to try and differentiate between the ones that are providing incremental, small sort of maybe baby step or even nice steps benefits. And then the question is, doesn't ChatGPT sort of 6 or 7 just knock them out of the park? Or is this an infrastructure play? Are they bringing something completely new to the table? And if a ChatGPT 10 comes out, that actually benefits the startup. And we're seeing this not just in ChatGPT, take machine vision or machine learning, where people are putting things on cameras and people are using things in a whole variety of different ways. Go to a machine vision startup and ask them, are they afraid of a new software, a successful machine vision startup, a new type of machine vision to be released by Facebook or Google? And they'll say, no, we're waiting for it. That will make our product infinitely better. So that's how we will differentiate, I think, between the ones that have long-term potential versus the ones that are maybe a nice, tricky, short-term success.